So the chapter that I have to do my presentation over is chapter 15 out of the textbook, and it is over pretend and constructive play for children. And what that means is curriculum that includes like pretend and constructive play, one or the other or both together, helps children to develop in like all areas. So both pretend and constructive play includes symbolic modes of representation, and constructive play requires children to have an image in mind and make or construct that using like various materials, which is what I have in front of me. And then for an example of like constructive play, it could be a child drawing or modeling with clay or playing with blocks, which are like more of the stereotypical things that you can see. But with pretend play, this is when a child places reality on hold and uses their imagination to participate in a make-believe activity. An example of that would be, of course, a child playing house or doctor, or acting out a character from a book, if you've been reading a book with them and telling them to act out a scene. So for my presentation, I chose to do a lesson that kind of incorporates pretend and constructive play together, but it mostly focuses on constructive play. So because the focus of my lesson is about animals, I chose to, during my lesson, bring the students to the carpet and have like a story time to introduce the topic to them. And I chose this book by Eric Carle called Does a Kangaroo Have a Mother Too? Because it has a wide variety of animals throughout it, and it's very repetitive and allows the students to catch on to the story really quickly, so it's really appropriate for like 3 to 4 year olds when they're first learning to like comprehend stories. So I'll just read this book for you so you can get the gist of what the story's about. So, Does a Kangaroo Have a Mother Too? By Eric Carle. Yes, a kangaroo has a mother just like me and you. Does a lion have a mother too? Yes, a lion has a mother just like me and you. Does a giraffe have a mother too? Yes, a giraffe has a mother too, just like me and you. Does a penguin have a mother too? Yes, a penguin has a mother, just like me and you. Does a swan have a mother too? Yes, a swan has a mother, just like me and you. Does a fox have a mother too? Yes, a fox has a mother, just like me and you. Does a dolphin have a mother too? Yes, a dolphin has a mother, just like me and you. Does a sheep have a mother too? Yes, a sheep has a mother, just like me and you. Does a bear have a mother too? Yes, a bear has a mother, just like me and you. Does an elephant have a mother too? Yes, an elephant has a mother, just like me and you. Does a monkey have a mother too? Yes, a monkey has a mother, just like me and you. And do animal mothers love their babies? Yes, of course they do. Animal mothers love their babies, just as yours loves you. And one thing I also like about this book is the pictures and illustrations throughout the book are very colorful, and in the back it has a definition of each animal that it mentioned in the book as well. So, of course, throughout this book you can ask a variety of questions about the animals, like where do you think this animal likes to live, in hot or cold weather, in a forest, and so on, just to get them thinking because they're going to make their masks later on. And then, of course, on the front, you're going to mention like where the author's name is and where the title is and point to start introducing those things to them. And you could even mention that you can find the title and the author on the side as well. So, like I said, I would read that book to my class. So, what I would do is first like welcome my class to the carpet with some sort of cue or transition song of some sort to let them know to prepare to sit down and listen for story time. And so then I would introduce the book, talk about like where's the author's name and where's the title of the book, and have a little discussion on that and point to it so that they know where to identify those things. And then once everybody's ready to focus, I would introduce to them that we're going to talk about animals today, and that once we get done with our discussion on animals and the different kinds, we're going to make masks. So after reading the book, I would have a discussion with the class and ask them various questions like, what are some animals that we saw in the book, just to review that, and then I would ask, what are some animals that you would see at the zoo, and get a few answers. What are some animals that you would see on a farm, and get a few answers. And then you could even extend it past that and ask questions about like what are some animals that like to live in the cold, so that maybe you can get a response of like penguins and polar bears to expand their thinking further out of their comfort zone. So then you could even like bring up a few different animals and ask them where do you think they like to live. For example, where do you think an elephant or a lion likes to live? They like to live where it's hot. And you could do that throughout the book as well, and during your discussion of like what are some animals at the zoo and on a farm. Then I would instruct my students to think of an animal that they've seen or talked about today that they like and pick one, because we're going to make a mask. And then at that time I would show them an example of like some masks that I've made. Like here's an elephant and here's a lion, and they have string on the back to like put them on their faces and wear them around. Which this can spark their imaginations of using different materials like the ones that I have here. So like every student at their desk, once they're dismissed to their desk, should have a paper plate and a variety of all kinds of materials, because it allows them to be more creative the more variety you have. So, for example, you could have uncooked noodles, you can have grass and tree limbs, and make sure you have glue. They can use paint and ribbon and markers and crayons, paper, tissue paper, materials like fabrics and feathers. So those are just a few examples, but it's endless. And then next, I would dismiss the students to their seat after discussing their possibilities. And at this time, you need to make sure they understand the rules of like you need to share, and everyone can use as many as materials as they need, so make sure they're polite to the others and so on. So of course, once my students are settled at their seats and they're ready to work and be creative with all the various materials that you give them, I would go around as the teacher and ask some guiding questions to each group or table, however you have them set up. And so an example of some of these could be what color is the animal you picked, to make sure they're thinking about the right colors and not just making a rainbow. Does it have like big ears or small ears? Does it have a short or long nose? Does it have fur, skin, or feathers? Just to make sure that they're thinking about the different elements of their mask and the face that they're trying to make. Then, once the students are all done, of course you need to instruct them to kind of clean up their mess and put things back where they found them. And then you're going to allow them to come back to the carpet. So at this time you would use some sort of transition cue, get their attention, bring them back to the carpet, or a song. just to make sure you've got full attention of the entire class and you're not like screaming over them, because of course they're going to be excited doing all these activities. So then at this time, you're going to allow them to put on some sort of like show and tell, if you want to call it that. And this is where it brings in the part of the pretend play instead of the constructive play, which is them constructing their masks. So what you're going to allow them to do is take turns standing up in front of the entire class with their animal mask on. And before you let them start, I would ask them a few questions of like, before it's your turn, make sure you think about what noises does your animal make, what kind of movements does it do, how does it walk, how does it act, because when you get up in front of the class, that's what you've got to do and put on a show for us. So after they're walking back to the carpet and you provide their instructions, you can allow the students to take turns putting on their show. And you need to make sure that you give them instructions on being respectful, because you want them to be respectful when it's your turn. So be quiet and listen and keep your focus on them. Keep your masks in your lap until it's your turn instead of playing with them. And then once everybody's done with their turn, I would like settle them back down and ask a few questions to like conclude the whole lesson. So ask them some questions about what have they done today? What did they make? Just to get them to think about everything that they've done. What is something new you saw today? So maybe they'll give you a new animal that they didn't know about. Ask them to share with you an animal and then a new animal and noise you saw. So then maybe they haven't heard of a polar bear before or something, and they can share that with you and tell you the noise or how they act. Which is a good way to like refresh the new knowledge they gained at the beginning of the lesson and help them think about all the new things that they've learned today and during the lesson. So a few extra things to think about with your lesson as a teacher that you don't necessarily, of course, tell the students are like some modifications and accommodations that you could do. And of course, some of the obvious ones that I had noted of are like some students that may struggle to stay on task in your classroom, sit them closer to you on the carpet so that they stay more focused, or sit them in a specific area of the room when they're working on their masks because they have so much freedom. Maybe sit them closer to you or sit them away from like their best buddies so that they can stay more focused on their assignment. Of course, any children that have disabilities, you just are going to accommodate and modify for them as needed. But some examples are students that have like hearing or seeing impairments, sit them closer to you so that they can hear and see what you're doing, or when they're on the carpet, or sit them somewhere where they can hear you better when they're working at their tables. For the enrichment part of this, because it mostly focuses on the constructive play of the assignment, the enrichment that you're allowing the children to do is choose which animal mask they want to make and start from complete scratch and create some amazing masks. And it's all up to their decision. So you're giving them a lot of freedom to make choices. And then how I would assess the students during this assignment would be doing a lot of observations. So while they're on the carpet with me, I would be taking notes or jotting stuff in the back of my mind to write down later about if they're giving appropriate responses to the questions, are they staying on task, are they focused on the story and the discussion we're having, are they sharing appropriate information? So you're asking questions about what are some animals on a farm. Are they actually giving you animals on the farm, or are they giving you animals that live in a safari? So I would make sure I jot that stuff down. And then also, while they're at their desks, I would make note of, are they making the mask realistic? Are they being even more creative and making it colorful? What are they doing? Are they staying on task, or are they talking to their friends? Are they using a variety of materials, or are they just sticking to a few? And so on. And then also take some notes of observation at the end of the lesson when you're having this discussion of like concluding the lesson. and making sure that they did give the appropriate responses. So what are some animal noises in a new animal that you learned today? Make sure that they give the right noise appropriate to the animal that they share. I would also take note of if the students are being respectful to their peers when they're sharing and standing up and performing. Their willingness to perform in front of a class, or were they shy, not really wanting to, and so on. Because they're good things to track for the future. So if you keep up with those throughout activities to see improvement. And then for like the reteaching portion of this, like maybe the next day when the students come back in, hold up the book and ask them a few questions like, do you remember this book from yesterday? What are some animals from it? What are some animals that we learned about yesterday? What animal noises did we hear from our friends yesterday during their performances? Just to like refresh their memory on what they've learned. And then majority of the standards that are covered in this lesson are science and creative arts standards. But there are some social emotional standards where they're using materials safely and purposefully during a group. So which means that they're sharing and being safe with scissors and so on. And they're also developing fine motor skills by dealing with all these scissors and glue and making sure that they're putting things together correctly. So of course the importance of this entire lesson is the part that I'm mostly focused on, which was the constructive play. So it's allowing them to construct something amazing on these masks and use a wide variety of materials. So as you can see in these masks that I've made, I used all kinds of materials. I've used construction paper and paint and ribbon to hold it on. And this one I used stuff that looks more like straw and tissue paper and felt for my masks. And I even painted on top of the felt. So I feel like these would be good examples for the students to show them because they have a variety of materials, and tell them to be as creative as they can. So with the materials that are in front of me, I know it's a lot of them, but I feel like the more there are, the better, because it allows them to be more creative with the most options possible. So, like I said, of course the necessities are the plates and scissors and stuff like that, and a way to tie the mask onto their face. But I have really oddball stuff and stuff that's more stereotypical. They could get really creative and use noodles. And like I said before, you could let them go get leaves outside and use them as feathers if they wanted to. Or they could use real feathers like this. And they could use sticks and stuff that looks like straw and hay like I did. And they can color and paint and be as creative as possible. And that's the whole concept, is allowing them to construct something and be creative and then share that with the class. So.